Thank you. All right. It is 6:30 p.m. and I'd like to call this meeting of the Community Development Committee to order. While this meeting is being held in person, we are also offering the option for the public to participate through Zoom if preferred. Instructions on how to attend virtually are included in the City Council calendar item listed on the front page of missionks.org. The public is also invited to participate in the meeting. If you are participating through Zoom, please either add your comment in the chat feature and it will be read out loud, or note that you would like to speak and we will call on you shortly to make your comment verbally. Please remember your comments or questions are visible to everyone in the meeting. If you are part of our in-person group tonight, please raise your hand but stay seated and we will call on you to go to the lectern to make your comment. When you make your comment, please state your name and city of residence for the record. Also, please be conscientious of others trying to speak and speak slowly and clearly. All public comments are limited to 3 minutes. This meeting will be recorded and posted on the city's website at missionks.org. Please contact the administration offices at 913-676-8350 with any questions or concerns. Ms. Folks, please call the roll.
Haden, Chomphosy.
Here.
Loudon. Ryherd.
Here.
Pring. Here. Schmid.
Here.
Chosy.
Here.
Carpenter Davis.
Here. All right, our first item of business tonight is public comment. Is there any member of the public who would like to comment now on an item not on our agenda tonight? Please note public comments are limited to 3 minutes. All right, seeing none, we'll move on. We do not have any items coming forward from the Planning Commission or any public presentations tonight, so we will move into our action items. Our first action item this evening is for the acceptance of the meeting minutes from Robin Folks.
Thank you. Draft minutes of the February 5th Community Development Committee meeting are included for review and acceptance in your packet tonight.
Great.
Recommend acceptance on consent.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Our next action item this evening is for consideration of the Safe Streets for All and Transportation Safety Action Plan from Stephanie Boyce.
Good evening. Maybe my little stand. Thank you. So this evening, presenting to you the award of the Safe Streets and Roads for All Traffic Safety Action Plan. The City of Mission, with support from KDOT, secured $160,000 grant from the Federal Highway Administration with a 30% or 30,000 cost share from KDOT. For the planning grant to develop a transportation safety action plan, aligning with the city's comprehensive plan and the goal of eliminating traffic fatalities and serious injuries. Following a competitive search, we received six RFPs and selected 3 for interviews. In the selection committee, after that interview process, decided we wanted to contract with Burns & McDonnell to lead our TSAP development. They were chosen based on their experience with similar projects, their team approach, including stakeholder and community engagement, and overall understanding of the city's needs. Right now, we are working with Burns & McDonnell to develop a scope of service based on the RFP and off of their past projects with other cities like Mission. So some of those deliverables will include monthly progress reports and meeting agendas and notes. Meeting with the city, after their data gathering and analysis, they will deliver high crash location map, data safety treatment catalog, and data prioritized list. They'll also upload a lot of that information into a dashboard that can be forward-facing to the public on our website. Stakeholder engagement. They will help the city coordinate that engagement, help coordinate any kind of pop-up events, open houses, website production, so that we can get all that information, open houses, anything like that. They'll help us put together an advisory group to help guide this project. Those deliverables will include communication plan, engagement summary of all meetings and activities. And then they'll develop policy review looking at key policies, procedures, and standards and ordinances related to transit, roadway design, traffic operations, transportation access, mobility. And out of that, the deliverables are going to be the policy recommendation memo. And then finally, they will work on the plan development. And at the end of that, they will provide us with a draft TSAP, including a crash map, revised treatment catalog, project list, and policy recommendations. That will go out for review and comments, and then they'll provide us with a final plan. They'll also help the city with reporting. There's specific reporting guidelines that have to be done within the first 120 days. So they'll help guide the city on those reportings. Also, one thing to note, I did check with my contact with Federal Highway Administration just to confirm that our funds were good. And she did say that because we already have obligation and a signed agreement that our funds are secured. So we are asking for approval to award this to Burns and McDonnell.
Great, thank you. Yeah, Debbie.
Does this particular grant, it talks about safety in a global sense, but does it talk about congestion? Or would it identify how many cars are going down Johnson Drive in a period of time? And what we may do to kind of offset the congestion along Johnson Drive if it's getting really crowded?
They'll look at data such as traffic counts and any ongoing projects. So we are working on the Operation Greenlight project, which will sync those lights along Johnson Drive. So they'll take all of that into consideration when they're doing their data review and analysis.
Recommend a regular
Agenda. Okay, great. Right. Our next action item this evening is for consideration of the Safe Streets for All Transportation Safety Act. No, yes? Action, please. Sorry, next one. Okay. Our third action item this evening is for consideration of the interlocal agreement with Johnson County for Rock Creek improvements, also from Stephanie Boyce. Apologies.
Thank you. Excuse me. The City of Mission completed a preliminary project study or PPS for the Rock Creek Channel improvements, securing Johnson County Stormwater Management Program funding with a 50% cost share. Olson was contracted for design services. With the county covering up to $487,662 of the design costs. The city's share will be allocated from the Stormwater Utility Fund. And so we're asking for approval of an interlocal agreement with the Johnson County for this design. They asked for us to award the contract first and then take it for approval. And this agreement is going to outline the county policies and procedures detailed in the SMP projects and commits the funding contributions. So we're asking for approval to go ahead and approve this agreement.
Great. Any questions, comments, or recommendation?
Recommend acceptance. I think I'm fine with consent. Mhm.
Our next action item this evening is for consideration of an interlocal agreement with Prairie Village for public improvements to 63rd Street as part of the 2025 CARS project. I'm assuming also from Stephanie Boyce tonight.
Yep, thank you. So the City of Mission's CARS project for 2025 is the 63rd Street from Knoll Avenue to Rowe Avenue. And it's a joint project between the cities of Mission and Prairie Village. It's been approved by Johnson County for CARS funding, which may fund up to 50% of the project's construction and construction inspection costs. The proposed improvements are the full depth reconstruction, 3-inch mill and overlay, new pavement markings, spot replacement of curb and gutter, sidewalks, stormwater, and ADA ramps. It was approved at the last month's meeting, and this is for the interlocal agreement between the city and Prairie Village for reimbursement from Prairie Village. The total construction and inspection costs are $770,803.55. The CARS funding is $376,000. Out-of-pocket costs And reimbursement from Prairie Village is $137,006.20. And that's what this agreement would approve is to, for the reimbursement from Prairie Village.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Yeah, Debbie.
I just have a question. And if it's too difficult, I get it, but is there any way that when we're looking at an available budget, somebody could tell us what the total budget was for the year and how much is left from these? We have several projects pending and, you know, 1 million here or 700 here. I just wondered how much we have left out of that fund to get us through the year.
Yeah, and you'll see that we did that in response to you asked that question a couple of meetings ago. We tried to do that. We went round and round on this one. And we find, yes, so this one is. I don't know, but we decided you had already awarded the contract. And this was the interlocal. So there really is no budget on this. So we debated about leaving it off, but then we thought, we said Debbie will ask the question, Councilmember King will ask the question, what's the total? So everything that we're showing you tonight in this total budget is included in the CIP and we're all in your budget for 2021. So if we ever, you'll see in some of the other action items, if we ever have something that is in excess of what we've budgeted, we'll either show you where we have savings that we've identified that could cover that additional cost. You'll see that on the next item for the slide restoration, or we will bring forward a recommendation of an adjustment that we would recommend to cover any budget.
Okay, anything else?
I move to consent agenda.
Mhm.
Thanks, Stephanie. All right, our fifth action item this evening is for consideration of a contract for restoration of the green slide at the Mission Family Aquatic Center from Penn Almany.
Good evening, council. So the green slide is the enclosed one, just north of us here at the MFAC. It requires several maintenance and repair tasks to ensure that it's continuing to operate safely. And some of those elements are removing the existing caulking between seams, recalking. We'd apply a wax on the inner side, buff that out, and then new paint on the exterior, and then a sealant to protect all of that and make sure it can withstand the UV rays. So upon inspection from one of the three bidders, we realized that the tread and decking of the stairs leading up to the slides also needed to be maintained. And the decking is cracked, it's got some oxidation, paint is worn, discolored, there's need for non-slip additives. So some of the functional elements of getting actually to the top of the slide safely need to be fixed. We got 3 bids. One was from Safe Slide for $26,182, and they bid a portion of it for the slide repairs and a portion of that for the tread and decking repairs. Bainham bid $16,750 for just the slide repairs. And when we'd followed up with them for the decking and tread repairs, they were non-responsive after multiple attempts. Splashtacular bid a total of $38,710 for both the slide and tread and decking as well. And we've worked with each of these manufacturers in the past. Bainham did our indoor slide, did a great job. We have had issues with them getting them on site, but once they show up, they do good quality work. Safe Slide we used 2 years ago for the orange slide. They used a thinner protectant than we had actually scoped. So it required them coming out multiple times to remove the product that they had initially applied. And so it was like 4 or 5 trips getting them on site to get the final product up to specs. Splashtacular is the original manufacturer. With them, they bring absolute best grade quality product and restores the original manufacturer warranty, which is most appealing to us after 10 years. So unfortunately, we bid $30,000 for the project. Their bid comes $8,710 over budget. And staff is recommending that we contract with Splashtacular and use some of the cost savings from another project. So we had gone out to bid for the Rock Creek Trail. All three of the bids we had gotten for the mill overlay and reseal of the Rock Creek Trail came about $25,000 under budget. So staff's recommending use at least $8,700 of that savings towards this project. And staff is recommending contracting with Splashtacular for the restoration of the slide, tread, and decking for $38,710. Project is slated for completion next month in time for the 2025 swim season, which is just around the corner. Happy to take any questions.
Yeah, Ben.
Yeah, how well used, how popular is this slide? Does it get a lot of traffic?
It does get a lot of
Is
traffic.
it worth getting a high quality treatment
Yes.
put on it and getting the warranty restored?
Yeah, and what we realized 2 years ago is if you don't put the right thickness, that can have a myriad of after effects, a ripple effect of things like scratching swimsuits, catching caulk layers, slowing down the actual progression down the slide, which is what we noticed on the orange slide. And so had it not been for some of those telltale signs, we may not have even caught the fact that it wasn't the right spec. So they do factor into a safe and consistent ride. And I mean, those ultimately funnel back in the form of comment cards that say, hey, what's wrong? It didn't used to be like this. You ruined a pair of my shorts. And so we'd love to catch that on the front end to prevent some of those things.
Yeah, sounds like a bit of a headache. Okay, great. Thanks, Ben.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate the due diligence and the explanation in this coming towards us. And I would say, having used that slide and my husband using the slide, it's really important. It's well made.
Yeah.
I would move this to consent.
Agree. All right,
Thank you.
thank you. And our final action item this evening is for consideration of a grant sponsor agreement for the Rock Creek Trail Corridor Improvement Study from Brian Scott.
Okay. We made application back in the summer for yet another Planning Sustainable Places grant. This will be our third one, about 2 years. And this one is for the Rock Creek Corridor West. So we completed a Planning Sustainable Places grant study for the Rock Creek Corridor East from Woodson to essentially Roland Drive, and looked at the trail and possible improvements to the trail, mostly adding green space and various park amenities along the trail. Then that section of Martway from Knoll to Roland Drive, kind of maybe narrowing it a little bit, adding a sidewalk on the north side where the Martway Shopping Center is located, and then a possible bicycle track. So this study would be looking at basically the west section of the trail from Woodson going all the way to Metcalf. It would also include the Martway corridor, so about a 40-acre area. And we'd be looking at a lot of the same amenities and ways to enhance that, make better connections, and to, in some sense, kind of improve safety along Martway. Kind of tie it a little bit with Safe for All, the grant that Stephanie was talking about a little bit ago. So this grant is for a total of $110,400, and our share of it would be $24,864. And that $864 is actually a 1% administrative fee that we pay to Mark to actually administer the grant. So they'd be receiving the grant funds through KDOT. They'd be administering the grant funds, and then we'd just simply be a recipient of it in terms of doing the study. So, and we are, we've actually gone ahead and drafted an RFP and got that out in the street. And hoping to review this sometime in April, make a selection. Any questions?
Yeah, so I see we budgeted 10,000 and we're maybe be able to find some savings or whatnot from other funds. Can we get a little bit clearer picture of how that's gonna stack up? Have we saved that money?
Well, I got
Or-
salary savings.
Okay.
I'm down 3 positions right now, so there's your other 10,000, so,
Yeah, fair enough.
yeah.
Anybody else? Yeah, sure.
So are the federal funds available?
Yes, I reached out to Mark to confirm, and the answer was yes, they are committed with KDOT, and KDOT is ready to rock and roll in this project, so.
I would move this to regular agenda just because of the impact it has on the community.
Sure. Yeah. Makes sense. All right.
Okay, thank you.
That's It. All right, that concludes our action items this evening. We do not have any discussion items. But before we adjourn, Ms. Smith, are there any department updates for the Community Development Committee?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, great. It is now 6:51 PM, and with no further discussion, that concludes the meeting of the Community Development Committee. Again, this video will be made public on our website at missionks.org. Thank you.
Pretty quick. Everybody good to jump right into it? Okey doke. It is now 6:51 PM, and I'd like to call this meeting of the Finance and Administration Committee to order. While this meeting is being held in person, we are also offering the option for the public to participate through Zoom if preferred. Instructions on how to attend virtually are included in the City Council calendar item listed on the front page of missionks.org. The public is also invited to participate in the meeting. If you are participating through Zoom, please either add your comment in the chat feature, and it will be read out loud, or note that you would like to speak, and we will call on you shortly to make your comment verbally. Please remember your comments or questions are visible to everyone in the meeting. If you're part of our in-person group tonight, please raise your hand but stay seated, and we'll call on you to go to the lectern to make your comment. When you make your comment, please state your name and city of residence for the record. Also be conscientious of others trying to speak, and speak slowly and clearly. This meeting will be recorded and posted on the city's website at missionks.org. Please contact the administration offices at 913-676-8350 with any questions or concerns. Ms. Folks, please call the roll.
Haden, Chomphosy,
Here.
Haden,
Here.
Ryherd,
Here.
Ring,
Here.
Schmidt,
Here.
Josie,
Here.
Carpenter Davis.
Here.
Our first item of business tonight is public comment. Is there any member of the public who'd like to comment on an item not on the agenda tonight? Please note, public comments are limited to 3 minutes. Don't see anyone in person. Is there anyone online? No. Okay. We do not have any public presentations this evening, therefore we'll move into our action items. Our first action item this evening is the acceptance of the meeting minutes from Robin Folks.
Thank you. Draft minutes of the February 5th Finance and Administration Committee meeting are included for review and acceptance in your packet tonight.
Does anyone have any
Recommend
comments?
acceptance on consent.
On consent. Okay. Our next action item this evening is for consideration of a funding agreement for 5101 Johnson Drive from Laura Smith.
Yes, thank you. So 5101 Johnson Drive, former Wild Oats property, was recently acquired by a local developer, Dan Carr of US Federal Properties, who intends to reuse the existing building and refurbish both the building and the surrounding site to accommodate 1 or more retail tenants. And those tenants have not yet been identified. The property is currently in an established TIF district, and they have expressed both an interest in a TIF project plan and a community improvement district, which would be an additional sales tax, using those incentives to fund a portion of the upgrades and improvements. They're anticipating significant improvements to that building. So all that is before you tonight is the funding agreement that we require whenever we have a developer who has requested us to consider incentives. This requires them to escrow funds to cover the costs of the work done by our financial advisor, our bond counsel, and others, and alleviates our residents from having to pay the costs, whether or not a project goes forward. So this would require them to establish an initial escrow of $10,000. in association and prior to the review of their project.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead, Sharon.
Where is this U.S. Federal Properties Company located? I've never heard of them before.
They're here in Kansas City. Dan Carr is a local developer. Yes.
Have any other questions or comments? Yep, Debbie.
At what point would it be determined what the retail shops are?
At some point prior to us bringing forward, we anticipate it's going to be over the next probably 3 to 4 months that we bring all of those things forward. So we have talked tentatively, we've had conversations with both the developer, our bond counsel, and the mayor and I about the challenges associated with that. And the need to, if this were to move forward, to be very specific about what types of tenants you would be willing to incentivize, if any.
Is this the same developer that came forward maybe 6 months ago about potentially putting a used clothing shop?
No.
Thank you.
Can I get a recommendation on this one? If there's no other comments or questions?
Part of me just thinks recommendation for approval on consent, just because it's a funding, I mean, it doesn't impact, not a big impact on the city, so, and unless anybody else disagrees.
Cool, thank you. Our next action item this evening is for consideration of a tax increment financing ordinance for 5665 Fox Ridge, also from Laura Smith.
So I'm going to take, at the pleasure of the chair, items 3 and 4 together. Both are related to the 5665 Fox Ridge, which is the block multifamily redevelopment project. We have a lot of development activity that is in play and in progress. I believe as of late this afternoon, I think we have agreed to terms in this project that the staff, the internal team, the mayor and the developer could support. We just need, which would include some of the enhanced sustainability components that the council has expressed and reiterated time and time again with the developer that were very important. So our goal is, I had asked the developer, I recaptured those terms and sent it back and said, before I present those publicly, this evening, could you confirm? And I believe Mr. Messmer, who's the developer's representative, is on a plane coming back to Kansas City this evening. So we will be sharing that out. I think our hope would be to, well in advance of the meeting on the 19th, March 19th, which is when this public hearing was continued to be able to present the draft development agreement to you all and be able to answer any questions. So there's been a lot of back and forth, but I think the message has been received from this developer about where the council's priorities are.
Do you have any questions or? Yes, Mary.
I just want to, I know that wasn't likely an easy conclusion to get to, so I want to thank you for your hard work on going back and forth on that. It is.
Well,
I
thank
appreciate
you. And you, I would give all the credit to the mayor if she were here, and I will still give it to her even though she isn't here.
Get it on the
She
record.
has absolutely, as she does in all of these projects, held the line for what is important to the council.
Yes, Debbie.
Could you tell me what sustainable features are being addressed in the redevelopment agreement?
I don't have the list of the specific features. One of the things, the last proposal that we gave to them was that they would either need to achieve a LEED Silver certification or a 2 Green Globes certification with specific criteria. And we established this specific criteria by working with a sustainability consultant at Hofer Welker that is essentially gives you the apples to apples comparison between LEED and the Green Globes system. And so that's been something I know as Green Globes has been introduced into our conversations. That's been a challenge and something we've struggled to really identify. And I feel like we have the expertise on our side of the table now to really be able to articulate those things which impact the building performance. So I can tell you that the base incentive would be to achieve that 2 Green Globe with the specific criteria or the LEED Silver certification. And this project at a minimum would be built under the 2018 building codes, which will be our first multifamily project, large multifamily project. Mission Flats was 2018. The Lanes was built under the 2012 codes. Part of the reason why that LEED Silver certification is important. The 2018 commercial codes, which is what this project would be built under, the building to the base code gets you to the base LEED certification, and it gets you one green globe plus a little bit more. So our hope is, as we continue to adopt more recent versions of the building codes and energy efficiency codes, that we won't have as much back and forth around some of these sustainability components, because it will be just fundamental and established in the code. But this is, again, what we've asked of this project is reaching beyond what those 2018 building codes would require at a minimum.
I guess my follow-up question would be the question I ask during every development agreement conversation, and that is, was pervious versus impervious parking ever mentioned?
Not in this one, because all of the parking, with the exception of the parking in front of the leasing office facing Metcalf, is underneath the building. So it's not, you're not collecting water on that parking surface.
I think one thing that helps me anytime we're looking to assess a TIF district is understanding the difference in taxes collected as the property stands today versus exactly what the city's taxes collected would be over time. If I'm reading the numbers correctly, and I'm posing this mostly as a question because I'm not confident that I am, is that today I think that property was assessed at 56 grand. And that we will be collecting slightly under that for the first few years, but starting year 4, it looks like it tips in our balance, and from then on we start seeing a net positive. But when we see this again, I know that always helps me.
We will
as just-
update those exhibits. So you may recall the very first time we've introduced this, we presented 4 different potential scenarios in terms of TIF revenue sharing over the 20-year term. And one of those was also a 15-year term. We had moved forward negotiating based on a 20-year term, because with that revenue sharing, it benefits the city to go the full 20 years, because we are able to then use our share, our portion of those TIF revenues within the district. And we anticipate that there will be improvements in the future, particularly related to some of the acceleration, deceleration lanes along Metcalf, where we would need to make that investment. So that gives us, and I think Councilmember Kring had this question, but there was, Mr. Kimmel's analysis showed that the internal rate of return for the developer didn't change significantly between the 15-year scenario and the 20-year scenario. But we are looking at a 20-year scenario for that reason. But because the numbers have been in play until late this afternoon, we will rerun all of those charts specific to what the recommendation is that we will bring forward, so you can absolutely see what those potential financial impacts would be.
Super, thank you. Any, Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, so pardon me, I'm coming off a day of meetings and my head's still spinning, but just trying to catch up. What information roughly are we expecting that we don't have now that we'll have next time besides the TIF figures?
A draft development, the actual draft development agreement.
Okay.
You have all of the other pieces, the draft ordinance, the IRB resolution. So really this will just be, and so you'll have a similar memo to what we're going to talk about here in just a moment on Mission Mart CID, which just summarizes the high points of the deal if you don't want to read 40+ pages of an actual development agreement. But then we would hope to have that, what we would have before we ask you to vote on it, the full development agreement.
Mhm.
If there's anything else that you would like to see, please let me know. And we will put that on the to-do list.
Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, I'll take a recommendation.
Regular agenda, please.
Regular agenda. Yeah, for both.
Yeah,
For
well,
both.
yes.
And this will have a
Yeah.
continued public hearing.
So regular for both, please. Let's see. So that was for both the TIF and the IRB. So that should bring us to our next item, which is consideration of an ordinance establishing the Mission Mart CID, also from Laura Smith.
Yes, thank you. So as you know, since January, we've been talking with Ridgeview North Associates, which includes members of Sunflower Development Group, Mr. Choykett, who has owned the Mission Mart Shopping Center for quite some time, and some others. They have submitted a Community Improvement District or CID petition associated with proposed upgrades to the center. That petition seeks to levy an additional 1% retailer sales tax that would take effect in July of 2025 for a period of up to 22 years. And they've identified approximately $3.6 million in improvements and upgrades that they would expect to be reimbursed through CID sales tax revenues. Overall, the developer plans to make over $7 million in total of investments. So we've been working for the last several months to finalize a recommended development agreement. We have accomplished that, which is the document that was uploaded to the packet yesterday. I would actually invite Mr. Kevin Wimpy with Gilmore and Bell, who's here with us this evening, to kind of run through some of the high points of that, because the development agreement is really his specialty and handiwork. And then we'll be happy to answer any other questions. I don't believe Bruce is online, and then is Mark, while you're online, okay. We were having some conflicts with Ashland State Services and developers. They will all be present next, or this 19th.
All right, thanks, Laura. Hi, I'm Kevin Wimpy with Gilmore and Bell, the city's bond counsel. Also with me tonight, my colleague Chanel Perez. I'll do just a couple of minutes on the development agreement before you for the Mission Mart CID. The project is really defined. The exhibits do a lot of the heavy lifting here, where you can find the renderings and budget and so forth. But to boil it down, the developer is promising to deliver parking and landscaping improvements, facade, refresh, roof repairs, and other things that are really capital in nature to refresh the shopping center, as depicted on the renderings. And what's promised or committed by the developers to spend at least 2.8 million on those exterior items that are more community facing that I just mentioned within 5 years of the agreement date. And that's out of the 3.6 million or so in the budget that you see are more immediate out of that total 7.2 million number. And again, the timing is that they'd commence construction on those core elements within the next 6 months, and then complete and certify those costs to the city within 5 years. And it is all PAYGO CID reimbursement, so they can only get reimbursed what they spend. And of course, the CID revenue has to materialize to provide the funds to reimburse the developers, as you're used to seeing on PAYGO deals. There is one extra element here that sort of puts a governor on the amount that can be reimbursed, is a public-private ratio. And all that simply means is we've agreed to a dollar for dollar public to private ratio, or 50-50 split. And so in order to get $1 of reimbursement, the developer has to spend 2. And so Laura mentioned there's an overall cap that goes up to 3.6 million of CID reimbursement. And so simply put, to be reimbursed up to that full cap, they'd have to spend $7.2 million at the shopping center. Aside from that, the agreement contains the typical covenants you're used to seeing. They have to ensure the facility appropriately, maintain and keep it in good upkeep, pay their property taxes on time, and so forth. So the rest of the agreement should contain those more standard covenants you're used to seeing on PAYGO deals. With that, happy to try to address any questions you might have.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the committee? Question or comment? Yeah, Debbie.
Thank you. I'm really looking forward to rehabbing and refurbishing this landscaping for us, because this is a great community need for retail, restaurants, etc. So I'm really looking forward to this project moving forward. We're in dire need of some additional retail and restaurant and additional shopping. So I think this is an awesome project. Thank you.
Ben.
Yeah, I mentioned this to Laura earlier, but I just want to call out, aside from the aesthetic improvements here, which are very welcome, and I think refreshing this property will be, just as Debbie said, a great thing. I'm happy to see some functional improvements around kind of the pedestrian walkability. A lot of times walking around this property, I feel like there's essentially just parking lot that I can walk in. There's no, I mean, you can get to a sidewalk, right? But you've got to walk through a parking lot to get to the building. So to see them in this rendering where they kind of have the middle big archway, improving the pedestrian experience there is really welcome. And would just encourage, as I told Laura before, if there are any other places we can find opportunities for just simple stuff, marked crosswalks, things that make it feel a little bit nicer, like you're not just walking around a parking lot. Really makes it feel a little bit safer, a little bit easier and nicer when you're pushing a stroller around, stuff like that. So, yeah, other than that, I'm liking what I'm seeing here.
Yeah, please.
Are we asking them to do any sustainability efforts in this upgrade?
There really were not any specific sustainable elements that would be included. I think someone asked the question about native plantings in the landscaping. And I think they do have plans to incorporate that. We've, and we'll continue to encourage them to look at more energy efficient when they get to the point of doing HVAC upgrades. Again, some of this is going to be dictated by permits that they'll need to pull and codes that we have in place at whatever time that might occur.
I was gonna say they're doing roofing too, right? Yeah, I mean, roofing and HVAC seem minor, but I think they'll help a lot of these tenants in terms of energy loss. So.
Right.
Any other questions or comments? No, I'll take a recommendation, please.
Recommend regular agenda.
Regular. Thank you.
And again, similar to the 5665 Fox Ridge, there is a public hearing that was continued to March 19th. So we'll pick that back up, make those presentations, take any public comment, and then this ordinance will be in front of you that will also adopt the redevelopment.
Thank you. Our sixth action item this evening is for consideration of a resolution establishing city-sponsored festivals and events for 2025 from Robin Folks.
Thank you. We are excited to bring 3 events this year that will be designated as city-sponsored festival events. Those will be held on city-owned property and allow the sale of alcohol at the events. So 3 events put together by our Parks and Recreation staff. Yoga on Deck on June 26th, the Mission Summer Family Picnic on July 12th, and a concert in the park on September 19th. Those 3 events require approval by you all to have alcohol at the events, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the committee? No, we like it. Can I get a recommendation?
Consent, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our final action item this evening is for consideration of the purchase of tablet and keyboard equipment for the Mission Police Department from.
It's
who's
me,
not
not
here.
Dan
It's
Madden.
from
Yeah,
Laura.
thank you. So this item is just for the purchase of a rugged tablet and keyboard for the motorcycle officer. And we had transitioned to an e-ticketing system. And that has become really efficient and has really helped with the workload, particularly with data entry for our municipal court. But since we didn't have a tablet for the motorcycle officer, who is responsible for most of the traffic enforcement that occurs in the city, or at least a large portion of it, he has still been handwriting tickets, which reduces efficiency for everyone. So the chief has recommended the purchase of this equipment for $4,733.81 from the Special Law Enforcement Trust or Forfeiture Fund. And so you might be saying, well, this is within the department head expenditure authority and the city administrator's authority. But by ordinance, any expenditure out of this Special Law Enforcement Trust Fund must come before the governing body for approval. Those funds cannot be used for ongoing sort of operating costs. So we have tried in the past to use those for sort of one-time capital purchases or other things. So recommend approval of that purchase.
Thank you. Leah, then Ben.
Yeah, I think, in order to make things more up to date and efficient, this is a good thing. And also to keep him happy on his little bike. It's not little. I mean, to keep him happy with, what he's doing. Absolutely.
Is this covered under like our existing IT support services? They'll
Yes.
cover anything we pick up anywhere. Okay. Cool.
Correct.
What's the expected lifespan on something like that for $4,700?
I think we're replacing the MDTs about every 3 or 4 years. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And
This is some semi-exotic kit with
Mhm.
the sunlight readable screen and the ruggedization and all that stuff's always eye-watering
Sure, yeah.
expensive.
I'm assuming outdoor rated, waterproof, et cetera, et cetera. Makes sense. No, no, yeah. Okay. Any other questions or comments? No? Can I get a recommendation, please?
Move to consent.
Consent. Let's see. We do not have any discussion items tonight. Are there any department updates for us today?
just very briefly, I know we've been talking quite a bit and we had several situations on the CDC agenda where we had federal funding that was involved. We continue to work to confirm those as quickly and as many of them as we can. We still have only confirmed 3 out of that list that we shared with you previously. Tomorrow, we will be posting that updated list where we've added some narrative that says whether it's confirmed or unconfirmed. We'll be posting that to the website. We shared that earlier today with a cover letter from the mayor again to our congressional delegation and representatives in Washington, DC. Through our kind of conversations, have determined that likely the best way for citizens to express their concern or pass that along is to subscribe to the various newsletters that the senators and representative offer. I know that's how, for example, I'm receiving surveys by being on those mailing lists. So we'll be happy to share that out. I believe Robin will also be doing a social media post that advises folks that that's available and they can go see that. And I think that's all we have this evening.
Well, if there are no, oh, yes, Debbie.
I had a conference call with my interview group,
Mhm.
National League of Cities, and one of the concerns at the end right now is the potential for them taking away the exemption on tax on municipal bonds. Do you have any additional information on where we are in that? Because that's something that I would hope Mary and Rita would take to Jerry Moran.
If Mr. Wempe is still sitting behind me. There's my resident expert. Mr. Kimmel, are you online? Darn it. We're hearing the same sort of chatter. And what we can certainly do is, I know we've been talking about getting some talking points prepared for you. I think the conversations that we've had is that, I mean, this is conversation that circulates periodically or on a regular basis. And I think there's the likelihood that we could see more traction at this point in time. So we are watching that very carefully. Part of the reason why we're trying to bring financing issue to you here in the next couple of months. But I can ask both Mr. Wempe and Mr. Kimmel to speak to that. They've got a much broader sort of perspective and range of experience on that.
Do you have any other general comments or questions? Nope. Well, if there are no more, it is now 7:18 p.m. and with no further discussion, that concludes the meeting of the Finance and Administration Committee.